Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. So when I was 10 years old, I spent a lot of time playing the newest Zelda game. I still do, but I used to as well. I now spend entire flights across Asia or Europe just poured into my Nintendo Switch, and I love it. And I wanted to know, what are your guys' favorite games? What are the games that you've spent maybe the longest in one sitting playing?
So there's two answers to that question. My current favorite game, as anyone at the office would know, is Hearthstone, which I play obsessively. It's a trading card game. But the game I've played the longest in a single session has to be Civilization, probably Civilization 2, which has this terrible feeling where you always just need to take one more turn, and then it's 5 a.m. and the sun is coming up, and you don't know what just happened.
Well, for sure a Machine Zone game, of course, including our most recent release, which is World War Rising. It was released last week. It's a top 5 strategy game, and I do have to say I'm obsessed with the game and spend the most time in that right now.
What about historically? Any game that you've really spent like a crazy amount of time in one sitting playing?
Going back to when I was very little, I was obsessed with Q*bert.
All right, that's a pretty odd answer. I don't think a lot of people in this hall would even know who that is.
It tells you how long we've been in gaming.
Q*bert is hard.
It is hard. It takes an incredible amount of attention and actually strategy.
So in China, we've seen that they're starting to crack down on games and are requiring game developers, in some cases, to use facial recognition to identify the age of players so they can track how much playtime they're spending. They really want to make sure people aren't spending too much time on these games. How do you guys, with your game company and with Twitch, how do you think about how to balance that idea of healthiness for gamers with the freedom to play and do what we want?
I mean, that particular policy seems like a little bit something out of Black Mirror. It's a little weird to have your computer doing facial recognition and deciding how old you are and whether or not you're allowed to play a video game or not. But I actually have a lot of sympathy for that, the goal, because I do think that it's the responsibility of anyone who's producing an entertainment product, whether you produce something in person, you produce an online product, you produce something that people play with at home, that you think about the possible negative consequences of your product as well as the things that are good, and you make sure you don't hide from people the amount of time they're spending. You help them make good choices and good decisions about using your product.
Have you ever considered putting like a counter on Twitch or in any of Machine Zone games that shows players how long they've been playing?
Absolutely not.
Why?
So to answer your prior question as well, I would agree that it's a little bit Black Mirror-esque. That's a bit alarming to normalize what is essentially government surveillance. So we have a very different type of player. We cater to adults who like to get very deep into a strategic game. And so the games require a lot of time, commitment, and attention. So we want them to be as invested in our communities as possible.
We've considered a timer to try to figure out how long people have been playing. And actually, we might still at some point do it, but we have a bunch of people who are gamers that are on Twitch. And if you give them a counter that they can move up, there's a real danger they're going to spend a bunch of effort trying to make it as high as possible.
Absolutely.
So I'm not confident just showing people how long they've played is going to be the most effective way to reduce playtime.
What do you think would be a good balance, though, a good, healthy way to help encourage people to say, hey, sometimes it's okay to go outside, to call your best friends or your mom, or to go to sleep? Which, I know that seems crazy. I know Netflix says it's the enemy of sleep, but that's I think of something that applies to your guys' companies as well.
I think it's just like anything else. You want to make sure that you're a varied and interesting person, so you want to make sure you have a multitude of interests. But I think gaming gets a little bit of a bad rap, an unfair rap based on misinformation. The studies are consistently clear that it is actually a very positive activity to engage in. And I'm not saying that just because I run a gaming company. I also am the mother of 4 children. So I take it very seriously where they're spending their time. And a lot of games have not only positive effects on eye-hand coordination, but a lot of the games that actually require strategy and thought are asking these individuals playing the games to demonstrate leadership skills, quick judgment, solid judgment, to demonstrate mercy, to be generous of spirit, and they bring out a lot of very positive qualities.
What kind of screen time limits do you set for your kids, and is there any specific limits on gaming?
Yeah, great question. I don't have any sort of a hard set limit. It's sort of a feeling of, okay, now I feel like you need to go practice drums. You got to go do something else.
Have you ever had that experience where it's like, hey, you've been playing for 6 hours, even on one of my own games, but I don't think that's okay?
I would say they wouldn't play for 6 hours. They've got too much going on. I think that's a function of making sure that your kids, and again, remember, our games are for adults, not for kids. So we have a different community of players that I'm dealing with in our games. But for my children, between school and sports and music, they don't have much time, and homework, they don't have much time for gaming. So it's a hobby just like any other one, and you got to keep it balanced.
Got it. So, Emmett, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what it's like being part of Amazon, the most valuable company in the world, under Jeff Bezos. So I've heard that you're on a 5-year retention plan that's backloaded with 50% of that Amazon stock in the last year. Are you? And that's going to end up finishing vesting in October 2019.
Where'd you hear that?
I heard that from my little birdies.
I'd love to meet those little birdies someday. It's really interesting.
Fascinating. Well, do you think you're going to end up leaving in October 2019 when you're done investing all that juicy Amazon stock?
So that's one of those questions that's like, it has an implied statement hidden in something it's pretending to be a question. But I guess to answer the broader question you're trying to ask is how do I feel about being part of Amazon? Do I still enjoy my work? And the answer is absolutely. And I actually am having a great time with Twitch right now. We've, I think, really crossed a cusp where suddenly we're making sense to people even if they aren't core gamers. And I start getting all this input from friends, from family, where they're starting to talk to me back about Twitch, even the ones who don't play any video games. And I think that's a new thing for us, because we used to be pretty much concentrated in the gaming segment. And it's really cool to see us kind of go mainstream in a pretty serious way. And that's exciting for me, leading the company.
Yeah, I feel like Amazon was a really great place for it, because you guys are so tied in with commerce. Though I did hear that Yahoo was actually very close to acquiring Twitch, and you were almost going to become one of my coworkers, as TechCrunch is also a part of Yahoo and AOL and Verizon. And I also heard that YouTube had sniffed around pretty deeply, and you guys talked to them and gave them a lot of information, but they ended up backing out. Can you confirm, did you guys talk with Yahoo and Google?
I can't really talk about something that could have or could not have happened 4 years ago at this point.
I mean, there's
but
billions
no, I
of
can't
dollars
confirm or
at stake.
deny any information about the acquisition.
Okay. So you said you're having a great time. It sounds like you're really enjoying that impact of getting to help people turn their passion into their profession as a gamer. Though I know some people haven't had as good of a time as part of Amazon. John Shipman left, Boo Baker, John Sutton. Why are those people leaving?
So for those of you who don't know who those people were, there are several executives who've worked at Twitch. And most of them had tenures at Twitch 7-8 years long, which is maybe, 7 or 8x the average tenure in Silicon Valley. I don't know how long you've been at your current role, but my guess is, yeah. So, if you're there for another 8, I'll be really, really impressed. But I'm super happy with the average tenure of Twitch executives. I think that it's really valuable to have people, and you're not going to keep everyone forever. I think the idea that no one's ever going to leave your company is just an illusion as a CEO. You have to be open to people going on and doing new things. John Shipman went off to go start a startup, something he's always wanted to go do, that helps children in children's hospitals, because his kid got really sick, and he had to spend a lot of time in hospitals, and it suddenly became this huge passion thing for him. And so I'm actually super proud and super supportive of John going off to go, start a startup. Who am I to tell people not to start companies, right? Sure. But particularly something around something that he cares about so deeply, like helping sick kids in hospitals. That's something that I am absolutely in favor of.
I like that. Well, you must have had some awesome opportunities to learn from Jeff Bezos. Do you get to spend much time with him?
Not as much time as I'd like. As you can imagine, Jeff's a really, really busy person. But I have had some really, really good meetings with him. And I think one thing that's really clear is Jeff really does think long-term and thinks about how to create products that are great for customers. I've seen him come in and sort of rewrite a conversation that's happening by getting everyone focused again on what's going to be great for the people who are actually using this.
Has Jeff Bezos ever come to the Twitch headquarters in San Francisco?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. So I think another really massive issue in the gaming industry right now is moderation. It's one of those places where you really see the morals of a company come out. I think you guys have actually done a really great job with that at Twitch, balancing the idea that you want people to be able to be themselves without necessarily being offensive or harassing people. How do you guys balance that idea of giving people free speech while also preventing harassment?
Well, I mean, Twitch isn't a free speech platform. That's sort of more of the government's responsibility. We're a community, and as a community, I mean, I don't know how Machine Zone feels about it, but like...
We would say the same thing.
Yeah, it's very much like we're not just open to anyone who wants to join. Like, we have a set of community values, and like, you're welcome to go somewhere else if you don't want to be part of our community. Yes,
similarly, people self-select into the types of games that we make. And as with any of these issues, there's a little bit of a carrot and a stick approach. So all of us have our terms of use where we state our values and what is and is not allowed on our platforms or in our games. And people who abuse those rules, we don't hesitate to either silence them or ultimately kick them out of the games. But the way we've designed the games, we also have a lot of what I'll call carrots to encourage positive behavior. So in order to succeed and progress in our games, you need to form an alliance. You need to be very generous with that alliance. You need to persuade people to come into your alliance to do what you want to do. There's a lot of rewards and recognition for team-based behavior, so that tends to drive more positive than negative conduct.
How do you think about balancing what people do elsewhere versus what's going on your own platforms? Like if you find out, we saw this issue with Alex Jones recently. He did some offensive or abusive things on certain platforms and ended up being kicked off of other platforms. Do you think that that's a good policy? Like if somebody did something really bad on Twitch, would you kick them out of Machine Zone games?
Well, here's the thing. I would only probably know the device ID for Machine Zone. We know your device. We don't know who you are unless you decide you're going to email and send a picture and proof of your identity. We don't know much about you.
And I think on Twitch, we have the exact same issue where it's a pseudonymous service, so you don't necessarily know who's behind any handle. But no, our policy is if you go harassing people off Twitch, we are perfectly willing to ban you from Twitch for that behavior.
I think that's actually a really great policy, and I hope to see more companies adopt that, because we can't just think of the internet as all these different silos. We have to think of it as one big community if we're really going to protect everyone. And speaking of... please, go ahead.
I hate to interrupt the question.
Yeah, no, please.
Though I would say we need to be careful about who sets the standards for that community. So if we're going to be one community, who decides what exactly are the rules? That would actually be quite interesting. I bet people would have very different points of view on that.
Have you guys ever been asked to be part of like a cross-game industry like panel on that kind of thing, or some kind of initiative?
No, not as often as I think we should.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome opportunity to see you guys get together, and especially because you guys are both such leaders in the space, and there's so many people spending so much time with you. And one of the great things about that time is that it's really supporting these new creators, these people who have never been able to make money from what they love to do, which is to play games. So I'd love to hear, how are you thinking about creating new people, new professionals in this space, and how do you keep doing that for the long term and make sure that this isn't just this sort of blip of esports and Twitch broadcasting, but something that can sustain for a really long time and even go beyond gaming?
So we focus very much on the small streamer. In my keynote at TwitchCon recently, I talked about how we're introducing new discovery rows on the front page dedicated just to up-and-coming streamers instead of the most popular streamers at any given moment. We have a lot of ways people can find the most popular streamers already. We want to make sure there's a focus on helping small, promising streamers get big. And I think that that applies to any company that takes its customers seriously, that should be nurturing the future, not just what's successful today. And I'm sure Machine Zone does sort of a similar approach around the players.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to worry that you're going to promote somebody who might then do something problematic or bad? And how do you handle those situations?
So we try not to promote people who do problematic things. It's because it is a responsibility when you have a promotional engine and you have a spotlight on our front page. You don't want to point that at someone who's going to abuse that ability to reach a large audience suddenly. And so we're very careful about who we put there. And that's one of those carrots, actually, that gets offered up for people who do act as good members of the community.
So just quickly, I'd love to hear philosophically, how would you like to see the games industry change in the next 5 years?
I'd like to see more women in leadership in the games industry.
I applaud that. I think we should all applaud that. We do need more women in the game industry.
Yeah, it's a little sad. Thank you.
I was going to say that a similar but related thing is I would like to see us make more deep, serious games that are focused on being exciting for everyone, that aren't just war games. I don't have anything against war games, and I have played many war combat-based games. But I think there's this huge opportunity to build games like The Sims, for example, that really can appeal to anyone across society. Or Minecraft's another great example. And I'd love to see more innovation building games that go beyond just combat.
That's great. So to recap some of the awesome insights from our panel, whether it's Emmett playing Civ or Kristen playing her own games, it's really an opportunity for people to get away from the rest of their life and just invest in something for a moment. But it can be tough to actually balance health with that, because even if you give somebody a timer about how much they play, they might just actually try to run up that timer and show that they actually play more than everybody else. And these games can help people build skill. And I think that Jeff Bezos really sees the long-term opportunity there, even though he's not necessarily coming around the Twitch office, or you're not sure if he is. And I think that long-term, thinking about how do we get smaller streamers to be able to build a profession out of their games is a really big focus for Twitch. Getting more women into game development is such a crucial part of the future of gaming. But most importantly, I do think that if we can figure out how to make games that make people feel together, not like they're at war with each other, we might make the world feel a little bit more like it's a place to come together for as well. So thank you guys so much for talking with us, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.